Hey, Miguel Dorati back here on the CRP, and it's Tuesday night. That means Raw and SmackDown are both in the books in the WWE universe, and Snake Eyes is on the other side here to talk the two shows from the WWE here at the beginning of September. It's the first week of September. The war with AEW is basically on everyone's mind at this point. They are a month away from head-to-head action. Not that this affects these two shows, but it sort of has been affecting the whole WWE universe for a little while now. So anyway, take it away. Let's start off with Raw on Monday night. I guess the big news there was Bayley kind of turning heel, even though SmackDown put that in a different light. But talk about Raw. Break it down for us, the Snake Guys.
Yeah, we had Bailey come back and help Sasha Banks. Um, Kind of in a weird position for Bailey if you think about it, because I mean, she is the role model for the younger girls in the crowd. So, kind of an interesting take on the Bailey character, in my opinion. It's not really as big as Hogan finally turning heel or Austin turning babyface, but I mean it's a start. I mean she's been showing heel tendencies. I mean ever since basically WrestleMania, I would say. I mean just little looks or just a couple of dirty moves here and there. And then not to jump ahead or anything, but obviously she did explain herself the following night here tonight on SmackDown, which we will get into once we cover SmackDown.
Yeah, and overall, what they're setting up there, I get, with the return of Sasha, I guess they had tag teamed together before and stuff like that. So it makes sense that, she's helping out her friend, and there's that whole loyalty stuff that came up there. But I do have an interesting twist I want to run by you there. So we'll save that for the second part. Take me through. Obviously, they're in the midst of the King of the Ring stuff. Take me through the King of the Ring matches from Monday night.
Well, we had Ricochet and Samoa Joe, which was a really good match up until the finish of both guys having a hand on each other and being pinned. I did like the fact that they kind of dragged it out through a commercial break because one of the things that used to be really big in the Attitude Era was, you always left the viewer with questions, whether that be the commercial break or the end of the show. So they're finally starting to capitalize on something like that. I don't know if the finish was the right way, but I guess it's the most logical, sensible way to do it instead of doing a double count out or a double DQ or anything like that. So kudos to WWE on that end, which eventually turned into Baron Corbin, who won his King of the Ring match, which we don't have to cover because it's a Baron Corbin match. It was probably boring and half the crowd went and got popcorn. But it was found out by Baron Corbin when he was cutting a promo saying, "Oh, well, I guess I don't have an opponent then in the finals. Or the semifinals. I'm going to the finals." And it was reported that no, he's now going to be in a triple threat match with Samoa Joe and Ricochet in order to go to the finals of the King of the Ring. Now, my take is somehow Corbin's going to sneak out this victory so it makes him look even stronger going into the finals. I mean, that's the only thing I can think of right now.
You know, let's pause on this here. I think the King of the Ring comes with a little bit of history in the WWE, and that's what they were hoping to invoke. When done correctly, it's been an elite list of guys that have been the King of the Ring and stuff like that. So there's the potential there to select a guy and give him like an alternate push. And they've managed to screw that up already in my book. You know what I mean? Only because first, not only because there's a series of reasons. From the get go, I don't know why they didn't do this all in one night or in one of the other formats and stuff because it seemed at the start, like it basically got 15 minutes on the program and it was an afterthought. Aside from the matchmaking, which has been questionable at times, who advances and stuff like that, you had that aspect, and now you have something like a triple threat match thrown into the middle of a tournament. What is why? It makes no sense. It makes no sense to change a tournament's format. Never has this happened in the past tournaments and stuff like that. Buys are there, or you have an alternate fighter, and the scenarios are there already drawn out. In no scenario does guys come back and you have a special format. This is a special format match. It's a King of the Ring fight. So there's no the fatal three-way or whatever you want to call this is just, I don't know. I don't want to say confusing things, because I know that, I understand the match and stuff like that, but it's just, how do you put it all on a billboard? You know what I mean? It's like they're over. It's too much. It's out of place. It doesn't enhance anything, and it just leaves people like me who, if you're not a tournament and you're writing a goddamn script, write a script. You know what I mean? Don't play it by the fly. It's not MMA where you got to be ready if somebody can't continue and stuff. Here you've got all the control in the world. Why mess it up here? Is this all part of this push to enhance Baron Corbin? So you tell me, what's your take on this Baron Corbin situation? Like, why him?
Well, the only thing I can think of is so that when SmackDown goes to Fox, Corbin's going to go to SmackDown and feud with Roman Reigns. That's the only thing I can think of. That's literally, or Shane McMahon. Those are the only two possibilities that I can think of right now. But, I do remember a day and age where King of the Ring, they had the qualifiers on Monday Night Raw, and then they had was it 16 or the 8? The 8 for the King of the Ring pay-per-view. And then you normally had an Intercontinental title match and a world title match to separate the matches of the King of the Ring to give guys a break. I mean, you got the network. You could have did this on a Wednesday night in Tallahassee, Florida if you wanted to, okay? But WWE chose to do it this way, where it's just enhancing the Baron Corbin character. I mean, it did help a little bit. I think it's helping Elias get over a little bit better. I think it's helping Ricochet get over more. But God, Ricochet's promos are just god awful. I don't know if they're telling him to speak off the top of the head, or if that's just how he reads lines, but God, are they terrible. Ugh.
It's a shame because his in-ring stuff is out of this world. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I completely agree. I don't have it up here anymore, but I have the best of Ricochet on the Indies. So I mean, yeah, he's a phenomenal athlete.
So now let me ask you a question here: is the WWE really, again, I don't want to jump ahead of myself here, but we got Elias advancing in his King of the Ring tournament match this week as well. Are we going to see Elias and Baron Corbin? It's like, what good does that do anybody? It's like, and maybe it's just me because I've never been an Elias fan. I don't like, but dating back to the days of the Honky Tonk Man and stuff like that. I don't like the musician character. It's just not my cup of tea.
I've seen a few of Elias's indie matches back in the CZW days, and he wasn't a bad performer at all. I don't so much mind the gimmick. I think it's something different. It's a really easy way to get over as a heel by singing and ripping. I mean, if you got a good voice, use it. I mean, that's what Vince does, right? He takes advantage of any little thing he sees of somebody in the back. I mean, that's how John Cena became the rapper gimmick, and look how much, look how over that went. So, I mean, sometimes having that musician and that extra talent can help push a guy. I mean, I like Elias. I dig Elias. I walk with Elias.
All right, we walk separately on that. Like I said, I'm not. It happens every once in a while. I can't tell you what the reason is, other than gut feeling. I don't like him as a character, as an act and stuff like that. Maybe if I had grown up with him, through the indie scene and stuff like that, and seen him develop, I'd feel differently. But when it felt to me, and not knowing him from the indies, it felt to me like he came in at way too high a level in the WWE. Like he was already affecting title pictures and stuff like that. And all along, he's been kept, at a high level with the opponents and where they bring him in and stuff like that. And then, you got to sit through him singing and the whole thing. And it just really, I don't understand why such a big push for such an average character, not a guy I think that at this point that they're ever even going to put the title on. So So what's the deal? I guess he must have pictures of Vince on the goat farm or something. You know what I mean? So, uh, anything else notable from the Raw show that I'm missing that you want to go over here?
Uh, Raw wasn't very good after a very hot AEW pay-per-view weekend. So, my notes are very minimal. I mean, it was mostly the King of the Ring that I'm interested in right now. I mean,
Sure.
the Bailey heel turn is pretty interesting. Um,
So
the
well, let's go ahead and switch to SmackDown, and that show I believe opened with Bailey coming out and talking her way through that, and she came out to a good pop and a nice reception, rather than the expected booze of a true heel. You know what I mean? So start with that part of the SmackDown broadcast for the readers here.
Sure. Well, Bailey came out and said that it wasn't about being not a role model to the young kids, that she just wants to come out there and be a fan and make the fans feel like she did when she was younger. And that's why she felt she couldn't betray Sasha Banks. So even though Sasha Banks is a bad little girl, Bailey's going to stand by her side because she's all about loyalty right now. So it's not about hugs anymore. It's about being loyal.
Okay, and what do you buy it? Is it a weird? What do you think is this leads to? How do you develop the character? Because you know what I thought was a well played inmate. Was a well played character. And we've talked about her a little bit this week. Is AJ Lee, the old AJ character, where she kind of played a little bit of a character who wasn't all there, kind of a little loopy. And I think that might be an interesting way to go with Bailey, and kind of, it could take her right into the rated R realm. And I think she really needs that jump because, when you're in this PG world of, hugs and kids and stuff like that, it only takes you so far in WWE, and you're alone in WWE. It's not like there are other gimmicks aimed at a younger audience and stuff like that. So, she's in a weird spot with the character, especially because it's been for a while now that we've been seeing the balloons and all that stuff, and a true heel turn, you know, yeah, it would do a lot of damage there, but something where like she went off the loop, off the loop, the deep end kind of thing, and it was perhaps some type of mental issues and stuff would greatly adultify. I don't know if that's the right word, but it would advance her character in my book. What do you think? What's your take?
For sure, it would definitely mature the Bailey character more.
That's the
Um,
word.
I try not to speak over you, but I was like, oh, I'm gonna lose it if I don't say it.
Adultify? Yeah, you got to help me out.
But no, and they almost went full bore heel tonight with Bailey attacking Charlotte, with Sasha Banks. I mean that signifies a pretty good heel turn when the Queen comes out and she's, the most over female on the SmackDown brand right now, and beating her down with a heel Sasha Banks. That's a pretty full blown heel turn. I guess we'll have to wait for Monday night to see more of an explanation maybe, or we see Sasha and Bailey just start ripping and tearing through all the babyface women of the roster. But yeah, I think this might help the Bailey gimmick get over. Because I mean, what happens after a heel turn? Well, eventually you're gonna turn babyface again and start selling that merchandise. I mean, her pockets are gonna hurt a little bit during a heel run, but I think she's all right.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's you got to balance that stuff out and stuff like that. And at that point, it's like who decides that? Vince is probably going to be the master designer. If he wants it to be a heel turn, he could say, hey, you want to stay babyface? We'll just unplug all your merch anyway. You know what I mean? And they won't sell it for right now. Like I believe was recently in the news. He may have done that with Braun Strowman or something like that. I think, or maybe it was Ryback actually, who turned around and found his merch off the internet sites one day while he was with the company. At any rate, yeah. So Bailey definitely making waves in news, and I think pushing herself more to the forefront too. I think the other part about having the PG character when you've got I mean, at the end of the day, Sasha Banks is pretty edgy. You know what I mean? And in terms of recently, Uh, some of the other folks that you got the Japanese fighters that are mysterious and stuff like that coming in and stuff like that. And Bailey's just like I said, the character was coming in second to me, and just not interesting and things like that. It's an adult show at the end of the day. I think. So hopefully this will show further character development and, as you stated, some maturity, and we'll see what we get there. Now, definitely SmackDown had some other interesting stuff. Before we get into the King of the Ring here, let's go ahead and talk about Orton and Kofi Kingston and the extension of that feud. What's going on with the New Day and the Viper?
This is one of the parts of the show that I haven't caught yet on the highlights, but from what I've been reading, I mean this feud might actually become one of the hottest feuds of 2019. Um, they've already taken it personal by last week having Orton read off text messages from Kofi's son. So I mean, I would actually, man, it's hard. It's hard to pick. I wouldn't mind seeing Orton take the belt from Kofi just because of how personal the feud is. Because this could be like a Brian Pillman, Stone Cold Steve Austin level feud. I think where you just get the very realness where Kofi finally kind of snaps. I mean, what it's the one thing we've never really seen from the Kofi character either is, I mean, he's always been that happy-go-lucky babyface. He's never really had a true, like a badass run, and I think Kofi's capable of badass run, but he would have to drop that belt first.
Now, so from the historic part of it, when he got the belt, it was seen as taking the hats off to a guy that like acknowledging that he was over with the crowd and that he put in work. And I think also in the back in the gym and in the locker room, uh, it was also like the other guy saying, yeah, he deserves it. Like it's okay. Like he's good. He's good enough. If he has it for a little while, it'll be like he'd gotten to that point where he put in the work kind of thing. And there it was a feel good story to me. The fact that he's gone on a run now that's at least several months, that was a little bit of a surprise. I thought it would be, almost like, he'll drop the belt in a week or, a month or after a symbolic period of time. So now that they've extended it, things have gotten kind of interesting. Now you bring in Orton, and Orton is perfect for two things, right? Orton has really got, what is he, a 13-time champion in terms of like, he's got to be up there in the number, in the number. In other words, he's one of the pedigreed guys. He's right behind the likes of, John Cena's at 16, if you consider the number that they give Ric Flair officially on the historic counter. I think 16 is the main number associated with Flair, even though I've seen other counts and stuff. Orton's right there on the cusp of history. You know what I mean? Is Orton done with his championship runs? Or does he continue on his path to join those other guys who, on the pecking order? And when you're looking at legacies and stuff like that, I think it's a legitimate question. Is Orton really going to be put onto that level and become a 14-time and then, from there could continue to win the belt? It seemed like he was out of the title picture for a little bit. And now, is Orton the right guy to take the belt? Or because maybe he continues his legacy, or if he's going to sell the Kofi, then you're giving Kofi like a legit, like big legacy name and stuff like that. You're helping enhance Kofi's legacy. So how do you see this one going? Which way? What's going on here? What's the WWE's thinking?
Well, it kind of all depends on the direction they wanted to go. I mean, at first, when Kofi won the title at Mania, I figured it was just because they had this African tour coming up. They wanted one of, a character from Africa to be holding the belt and all that. So I thought maybe, okay, they'll do like a 1 month run. But then you figure, well, if it's only 30 days, then they're going to get criticized that they only did it for this reason or that reason. So now we're at 5 months right now. We're at about 5 months, I think. And you mentioned how things are kind of getting interesting. I mean, it's more interesting is when is he actually gonna drop the belt, and will it beat Orton? And if he does beat Orton, that does put Kofi on a whole new pedestal. I mean, nobody thought he was gonna win the belt first off, And second off, nobody thought he was going to hold it this long. So now, if you beat Randy Orton, who throughout the years has been the legend killer, he was part of one of the biggest stables in wrestling history and evolution with Ric Flair, Batista, and Triple H. He's a multi-time world champion, third generation star. That just puts Kofi on another level. But then who do you put Kofi against after that? Because anybody that beats Kofi now makes Randy Orton look weak, in a sense.
Yep, I mean, there's all kinds of things that you could go, and obviously, if you start drawing up scenarios, any fantasy scenario I could draw up, it is not what's going to come up in the WWE's boardroom, for better or for worse. You know what I mean? They may do a better job, but I think if you wanted to solidify him and you give Coffee the win over Orton, then there are a couple of things like Orton on this tour. Orton seems to be fit again. Like I mean, like he tightened up his body and stuff like that. And usually, that comes back around a concerted run where they're going to give him a run and stuff like that. So that points to me that Orton's going to grab the belt at some point in the feud. But if Coffee gets by there, then what do you do with Coffee? You know what would be interesting would be for a true heel turn and have him turn on Big E and Xavier Woods.
Right. Oh yeah, I
And,
agree. I actually hope for a different scenario and help that Big
or they
E.
turn on him or something, one of those. Break up the New Day. I mean, the New Day's had an amazing 5-year run, and I'm sure the guys are enjoying, whatever checks they get for shirts and stuff like that as well. But at the end of the day, you don't want stuff to get stale. And to me, sell retro shirts. The New Day was good enough that I'd buy that shirt 10 years down the line. Hey, remember that? Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, I'll grab that. So they did that already. Don't fuck it up by extending it too long and running with it when it's not there anymore. So that's just one idea. But Coffee on a continued run really makes this one a feud worth watching. It really is up in the air, and I'm not sure which way they go. It's hard because you can see both reasons for both scenarios and stuff like that. So definitely something to keep an eye on there as Kofi Kingston and Orton. The other part of it is he gets by Orton, then I guess you're pretty much looking at a year that he'll have the belt. I mean, maybe he'll drop it somewhere. Yeah, I mean they move fast and stuff, so maybe he'll drop it at Survivor Series or something like that, and it'll be half a year or whatever. But it will take, if Orton, it'll take time to build up another guy. You know what I mean? So yeah, it'll be very interesting to see how long in history, how long Kofi Kingston's uh, number, how big it gets, the 229 days for a title reign, 540 days for a title reign, that sort of stuff. What will Kofi's final number be? That'll be something interesting that we'll get to talk about one day. And go ahead, take me through some of the rest of the show. Obviously, they had King of the Ring on SmackDown as well.
Well, as we had mentioned earlier, we had Elias beat Ali. I was actually really hopeful that Ali. Yeah, I agree, man. I agree. I was actually hoping it would be Ali and Ricochet in the finals. I think that would have been just let those guys go out and tear it down. Just let them prove why they got signed in the first place. That's my hope. I mean, as an indie worker, that would be my scenario for the big show. But I'm just a small guy in a small town. So, and then we also had Gable and Andrade for their match for the King of the Ring, which we saw Gable go over on Andrade, which was actually a pretty good match. A lot of back and forth action. I think Gable looked pretty strong. He's a superior athlete. He just hasn't had that outlet since the breakup of him and Jordan when they were American Alpha. I think their NXT run was probably about as hot as they were ever going to get. And it just failed to connect on the main stage. And then you had Jordan go to Raw. And ever since then, Gable's kind of been floating around. But I think now with the King of the Ring, they're giving him an outlet. But now he's got to work with Elias.
Yeah, we'll see. If they don't make a mistake, Elias at some point. I mean, we had at the outset of the tournament, we were like, no way Elias wins this tournament because that's been Elias's role. Even though, like I said, they presented him at a high level, it was always like to highlight the other guy. Like Elias was never held the world title or along those lines kind of thing. So this might be, this is a good spot as to why you save Elias. For you save him for exactly this moment. What does Chad need? I mean, the fact is Chad's going to be known in the WWE universe, right? So he's not a guy that you can just, bring out and explode onto the scene. Even though, if they wanted to be real creative, and they could change the character, put a mask on him, and let him fly around because he's that good of an athlete, right? But barring that, they need to repackage him. You know what I mean? And as King of the Ring, beating Elias in a match where Elias sells real good, that'll help him out a great deal. Elias is going to be a lot physically a lot bigger than him. It always looks good when a little guy beats up a big guy. You know what I mean? And I guess that would be the best role for Elias. You're right. I think any one of these injections, Chad against Ricochet, or any one of those fights would have been just a different tone. But I could just see, Vince saying, "Man, those are cruiserweight fights." You know what I mean? And just putting them down offhand like that. So it's kind of silly. But yeah, I'd like to see Chad Gable continue to develop there. I did some more research. I don't know. Like I said, he's using the Gable name. He has another real life name as well. And I don't know if there's a relationship. I haven't seen yay or nay either way with the legendary Dan Gable, but I do know that he represented the U.S. at the 2012 Olympics, so he's a wrestler with pedigree.
Yeah, and I think that's why they gave him the Gable last name, just because of the amateur background pedigree that he had. So
So yeah, it makes sense that and that's the WWE, put working in their universe to their advantage and stuff. It's not, no, it doesn't harm the kid to invoke the legendary wrestler's name, although, obviously, it only. Takes you so far. Anything else on the SmackDown show worth noting?
oh yeah, Nakamura beat a jobber, which
Yep,
what a
they
down.
definitely are trying to set up Nakamura there for the future. There wasn't much into this fight here. They're trying to make him look good, and I guess adjust to him using Sami Zayn as a voice. How do you see that going? What's going on there?
Well, Nakamura was fed a jobber, basically to look strong going into next Sunday's match against The Miz. So I mean that's why they did that. Having Sami Zayn as a mouthpiece for Nakamura, I mean it gets him TV time, I guess. But we all know how good of a performer Sami Zayn is. But we also know how good Nakamura is. But he just can't talk. He can't talk you into a building. He's got a barrier. He's Japanese. He's legitimate Japanese. And well, if anything, maybe this will make a Sami Zayn versus Nakamura match happen, and we can relive the NXT Takeover match of Nakamura's debut against leaving Sami Zayn before he went to the main roster. That's like one of my top 10 matches of all time, by the way.
Yep,
Uh,
I mean, it's funny because a lot of the guys, a lot of the fans out there that may have memories of all of these guys from NXT. The main roster actually has a tendency to let you down. You know what I mean? So we'll see if they are somehow able to recapture some of that magic. And I do hope that that is the end state of this. That eventually, um, unless there's a medical reason for Sami Zayn, to be out and turn into a manager, I'd like to see him back in the ring as soon as possible, just because he's a real character in terms of what he brings to the table is just so different. Um,
he
like
did just
the whole underdog feeling that you get with him.
well, he did just return from double shoulder injury, so you would think he's 100%. I mean, they wouldn't. I don't think they would put him out if he wasn't 100%. But it's maybe he aggravated something, or maybe this is just like I said, maybe this is the ball twining up to a Sami Zayn Nakamura feud where maybe Nakamura finally turns babyface again and we get the right Nakamura. Ugh.
Yeah, it's a shame. That's been the whole problem here with the WWE. So overall, let's go ahead and give Raw and SmackDown separate grades for the shows. Where are we on this? I'm firmly in the C neighborhood for both episodes.
Yeah, I'm gonna give Raw about a C plus and SmackDown about a C. I mean, my notes were so minimal on each show, like it just,
Yeah, it
maybe it
doesn't
was
inspire.
well, maybe it was just because I was, all wrestled out from the weekend, and I mean, I tried to catch some of the NXT UK because I keep hearing positive reviews about that, but I just, I'm so just pooped on wrestling.
Yeah, it's funny. I was watching a comedian. A comedian said something. He said, he came out and he was like smoking a cigarette and not saying any jokes and stuff. He told the crowd, he said, did you guys ever get to work and just not feel like doing shit? That's how I feel right now. And right now, I can understand that you don't want to do too much to do with wrestling, but at the end of the day, we got to get these podcasts out, and the WWE isn't going to stop cranking out their shows. So I appreciate your time, Snake Guys. Always good to touch base with you, run down what Raw and SmackDown are doing. I urge everybody to hit like and subscribe. You can check out some of my other work with Snake Eyes. It's beginning to add up here in our wrestling section, and all of it is well worth checking out. And to give you a little bit of a preview or hype for a new segment, Snake Eyes talked me into it. We're going to talk about Game Changer Wrestling, and we're heading right into the indie circuit and the hardcore indie circuit. And I got a lot of questions, and definitely those guys at Game Changer. I did a little bit of research and stuff like that, and a lot of the guys that we're watching today have gone through that show yesterday. So we're going to take a look at it. They had a show on August 30th, the day before All Elite Wrestling, that Snake Eyes got to attend. So we will be doing a review of that as well. So check it out. Any final words, boss?
No, sir, I'm ready to talk some hardcore deathmatch wrestling with you, bud.
All right, so let's go ahead sign off here, and we'll be right back. Check out our other podcasts. And I'm Miguel Dorati for the CRP.